and we are live on YouTube.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us for our master plan community meeting. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from our city engineer, Laura Newman, our city planner, Nick Graviano, who will discuss the master plan and any questions and concerns that you may have. And also with us is George Jackson, our city administrator, and George was here and will be participating in the question and answer section that we'll be having at the end. So the master plan is our vision for the next 10 years. And I want to stress that in our discussion with the city council, the administration, and myself, we do not see major changes in the planning and zoning in our city. It's also crucial to all of us that we preserve our single-family home neighborhoods. Our goal is to make the city a safe place to live, improve the quality of life, and maintain a city that is affordable. We have not increased the tax rate since I've been in office, and the City Council recently adopted a citywide tax abatement program for residents that will benefit all working families. So let's get started. We want to continue to improve the oceanfront, but put more emphasis on the rest of the city. That would include improvements to the commercial district on Broadway, as well as adjoining areas. These improvements will also prioritize historic preservation, our environment, the arts, parks, and recreation, as well as citywide landscaping. But before we get started, I want to talk about some of the things that we've done in the first 2 years that all relate to the master plan and to the future of Long Branch. We're proud of these accomplishments and believe that we're just getting started. So next month, we'll be closing on the historic Bank of America. That building was donated to the city and will become a community arts center, as well as a new office for our Office of Economic and Community Development. We'll soon be starting construction on a new community pool to be built without any cost to the taxpayers of Long Branch. And we just received the largest transit village grant of any municipality in the state. This grant will provide significant improvements to the 3rd Avenue corridor. Work is also just about to begin on a much needed upgrade of our railroad station. With regards to parks, a new dock, boat launch, and bulkhead replacement project has just been completed at Branchport Park, and a large open space grant project for improvement to Jackson Woods is about to get underway. We created a new park and flower display on Liberty Street and have landscaped City Hall, Slocum Park, and other areas throughout the city. The new carousel opened in Pier Village last summer, and much of the recent oceanfront development will be completed by the end of fall. Finally, we've applied for a grant for a large library expansion and community resource center. If awarded the grant, the building would include a state-of-the-art business center, health and wellness center, and a large auditorium. So these are just a few of the things going on in the city. And again, all of these projects have a direct effect on the future of Long Branch, just as the master plan does for the next 10 years. It's very important to us. We want to know your comments, your questions, and your input is appreciated throughout this process. We want to keep our city residents involved, which is why we're obviously having this meeting this evening. And with that, I want to thank you again for being here tonight, and I'd like to turn it over to Laura Newman, our city engineer. Laura?
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening. As the city engineer, my role includes design, supervision, and maintenance of construction projects throughout the municipality. These projects include, but are not limited to, improvements to roadways, utility infrastructure, sidewalks, parks and recreation, and community facilities. The master plan is the basis for zoning and development regulations within the city. I wanted to take this opportunity to highlight some of the goals we will be discussing this evening, specifically from an engineering perspective. Among the highlighted land use goals, we can ensure that both public and private engineering designs incorporate adequate provisions for tree preservation as well as enhanced landscape plans. Moving towards the transportation and circulation goals, we can continue to address pedestrian safety issues along our roadways and ensure accessibility for all residents and visitors to the community. We will evaluate our road networks to ensure that designs enhance same, as well as provide adequate parking specifically to address seasonal peak demand needs. The city can also look to create additional bike paths to ensure connectivity throughout the community. The goals of the community facilities and utilities will allow the city to continue to develop and enhance our recreational facilities and associated amenities, including landscaping. In addition, the city can continue to work with private entities to provide such amenities, as well as utility and infrastructure improvements which benefit the entire community. In conclusion, the goals set forth within the master plan reexamination will provide the necessary long-term planning document for the city's growth and development. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the city's Director of Planning, as well as Director of Building and Development, Nicholas Graviano.
Thank you, Laura, and thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to be before you and the residents of the city of Long Branch tonight. As stated by Ms. Newman, I am the Planning Director for City of Long Branch, and I'm excited for the public to be a part of this process. So we must ask, what is a master plan? Well, a master plan is a land use policy document required by state law. It provides the basis for zoning and development regulations. Its main purpose is to address land use and housing, but the document may also address other subjects such as economic development, historic preservation, community facilities, utilities, circulation and transportation, and open space and recreation. The master plan is required to be examined every 10 years, and the city master plan was last adopted in 2010. So what is the purpose of this master plan reexamination? Well, mainly it examines the policy objectives of the last master plan and determines if there's been any changes in policy or objectives since the adoption of that plan. It also has the ability to form new recommendations on development regulations and policy. Now, with respect to this master plan reexamination, we are presently in the data gathering process and reaching out to you stakeholders to get your comments and input on the document. We're having this community meeting tonight to gain your input, where we will springboard to the preparation of the reexamination report, as well as conducting the official public hearing before the planning board. So I mentioned this document examines the changes since 2010. So we must look at what's happened in the world and to Long Branch since 2010 and what we're facing here in 2020. With respect to those 10 years, we've had some major events such as Superstorm Sandy. We're currently experiencing the COVID-19 situation. We've also seen the fading of the brick and mortar retail of the retail sector. We've seen a rise of transportation network companies such as Uber and Lyft. So we're living in quite a different world in just 10 years than we were in 2010. With respect to population, this US Census indicates that the city's population is roughly the same as it was in 2010. That is a current estimate. The actual 2020 census numbers will be released towards the end of the year in 2021. And I'd like to take this time to remind everybody to make sure they respond to their census questionnaires, because a lot of important matters are determined by that information, specifically the congressional numbers as well as federal funding. So please get that in as soon as possible. With respect to building permits and development, we've seen roughly 1,500 new housing starts between 2010 and 2019. And that's broken roughly down by a quarter of single family development and 75% and 2+ family development. So in Planning and Zoning 101, just for anybody who's not familiar, the zoning code and the zoning ordinance provides regulations on what can be built, where it can be built, and to what intensity. The master plan provides recommendations for ordinance changes and modifications. With respect to redevelopment plans, they also provide those controls that a zoning ordinance does. However, it has an extra control of being able to impose timing, aesthetics, and other controls on the redeveloper. And this document will provide recommendations for both of those endeavors. So what does the master plan compose of? The first thing it composes of is the land use element. That examines existing land use regulations, makes zoning and redevelopment recommendations, and establishes any changes needed to the prohibited and permitted land uses, setbacks, height, off-street parking, things of that nature. And as the mayor said in his introduction, we're not proposing any substantial changes to any of the master plan or the zoning ordinances. We're simply looking to clean up some areas that make it a little bit easier to accomplish our goals and make it a little bit easier to the city as a whole and to the public to use the documents themselves. Now, what are the city's 2020 goals and objectives in terms of land use? Now, many of these were goals and objectives highlighted in the 2010 master plan. However, these are the items that are of top priority to the city. The first being providing zoning and development mechanisms to generate revitalization of areas off of the waterfront areas. Secondly, the city seeks to improve the condition and appearance of the gateway areas of the city, including Broadway, Joe Line Avenue, Branchport Avenue, Ocean Avenue, and both of the city's train stations. You heard the mayor discuss landscaping. We're looking to seek landscaping on public and private properties. We're also looking to amend the existing redevelopment plans with commercial land use standards that fit the current economy. Many of the existing redevelopment plan have very strict uses which could be located in with them, and we're seeking to provide a little bit of flexibility in these current economic times. We're also looking to maintain the single-family neighborhoods and the quality of life in those neighborhoods. With respect to those neighborhoods, establishing a tree planting and preservation ordinance is a priority. And we're also seeking to create public art spaces and placemaking throughout the city to promote arts, culture, diversity, and the history of Long Branch. So those are some of the land use endeavors the city is seeking to accomplish. With respect to housing, the city is looking to increase the affordable housing supply and affordable housing opportunities in the city. And we seek to continue to enforce the property maintenance code to protect the quality of life in all neighborhoods. Then lastly, and many of these items were touched on by Laura in her presentation, we are looking to address pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure throughout the city, creating a bike path network. We're also seeking to promote accessibility in all of our venues, as well as enhancing recreational and community facilities and programs. So those are just many of the items that we are looking to accomplish in this 2020 master plan reexamination. This is the part where we seek your input and participation. We have received questions via email, which we will address now. Additionally, callers can dial *9 to raise their hand, and the host will call on you by the last 3 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. So moving on to some of the questions that we received via email. The first one is regarding the bike path network, and I just touched on that in my presentation. Long Branch is committed to establishing a bike path network, and it's a major goal of this master plan. We've supported county applications for funding on Ocean Boulevard for improved bicycle and pedestrian facilities on certain portions of Ocean Avenue. We've also received questions from numerous individuals regarding the community gardens in the city and with respect to the master plan. I will like to note that the governor just gave us the ability to open up the community gardens, and we will have a couple weeks in prep time to get everything going for the community gardens within our community.
Nick, before you go on, can I just add that, you know, the community gardens had been closed as the public buildings have been closed. We have a structure there, so we were required, obviously, to close the community gardens as a public building. I think, Nick, it starts on Friday at 6 a.m. where they can, the community gardens can open again. But as Mr. Graviano pointed out, you know, we might take a little time to get up and running, but we want to resume the community gardens as soon as possible.
Thank you, Mayor. Moving on to some additional questions we received. We received questions regarding the stormwater control ordinance, and the responder provided a sample ordinance. We will review them with the city engineer to see what we can incorporate into the municipal stormwater management plan. We received many questions regarding the COVID-19 situation and how it's affecting the city and how it plans for the future. From a city standpoint, the city is putting in personal protection matters throughout the City Hall complex, as well as providing laptops for the departments to give people the ability to work from home. Now, with respect to this master plan, some of the things that we've just been starting to discuss and exploring are increased outdoor seatings for some of our restaurants and eating and drinking establishments to provide social distancing. And some of those discussions will definitely make their way into the master plan. We also received questions regarding recycling and composting. We will certainly support green initiatives and will work with the DPW in incorporating them with our daily practices here in the city. Moving on, we received questions regarding electric vehicles and other green transportation alternative by residents and visitors. I will state that the planning board has been requiring new projects to provide electric vehicle charging stations within their parking areas. This is something that we will definitely seek to formalize through the master plan re-examination. And the city is also investigating service providers for electric vehicle charging stations throughout the city.
Nick, if I can add to that, we've had a couple of workshop meetings with a couple of EV companies, one of which is Green Spot. That's currently, the BA, Mr. Jackson, and our city attorney are currently reviewing that. Hopefully that might be up and running at some point by the end of the calendar year or first quarter of next year.
Thank you, Mayor. We got a question regarding the city's plans for beautification off the beach and boardwalk. This is a very big priority of the city. We did receive, as indicated by the mayor and Ms. Newman, that we did receive the Transit Village Streetscape Grant, which will address the aesthetics along 3rd Avenue. And we're constantly seeking funding resources to improve the aesthetics of our streetscapes and right-of-ways throughout the community, as well as looking for funding sources to promote and enhance landscaping and additional beautification of our park areas. Our final question that we received via email was requesting information on the barriers that were installed on Ocean Avenue to prevent street crossings. We are working with the county and other stakeholders to improve the aesthetics of the Ocean Avenue streetscape. So that concludes the questions we're going to respond to that were received via email. If we did not get to your question, we did so because we felt it was either responded to within the presentation or it wasn't relevant to the master plan discussion. If you have any questions, feel free to contact the Planning and Zoning Office for additional information on your questions. Now we will open it up to calls from the public. As stated previously, you could hit *9 and the host will call you to have your question asked.
Caller whose phone number ends in 127, go ahead. Caller? All right. Caller whose phone number ends in 672, go ahead.
Hi there. I wanted to find out what kind of provisions the master plan has made to accommodate the traffic that the development in the city has promoted. It seems like the local roads are really busy, and I'm wondering if there are infrastructure upgrades planned or any kind of provisions for the traffic for the extra development along the waterfront.
Yes, the city is always aware that traffic is a concern of its residents. I would like to note from a positive standpoint, traffic is definitely a signal of vitality and the desire to be in the city. It's somewhat of an unwanted consequence of being a popular place to visit and live. The city is constantly exploring funding sources to examine and study the parking and traffic patterns that are generated during summer peak periods, as well as seeking to promote the usage of public transportation and transportation network companies for visitors to come to the city and get around the city once they're here.
All right, caller whose phone number ends in 385. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to know how we can provide detailed input on the recommendations before they are actually finalized. How do we find out what those are? Particularly since the town council utilizes this master plan to determine when it can make decisions without public input. Question one. Question two, thank you about recognizing bike paths along Ocean Boulevard, but how do we get there? There aren't good bike paths to get to that point. It's incredibly dangerous. Thank you.
With respect to the first part of the caller's question, this is the data and information gathering process. We will be issuing a report to the planning board where the public will have an opportunity to provide input at a public hearing with respect to the document that's prepared as part of this process. With the second part of the question, it's going to definitely take detailed transportation studies in collaboration with numerous local, state, and county agencies, but the city is certainly committed to doing so and making the city safer for bicyclists and pedestrians.
Nick, if I might add, and George, if you want to chime in, because I know you've been part of those discussions. So there's two things going on that we've had with the county. The county, we've met with us. They have applied for a federal grant for bike and pedestrian paths along Ocean Avenue. I think, George, it was between West End Avenue and Morris, was it?
Yes, Mayor. The city in January of this year submitted a letter of recommendation and endorsement to the North Jersey Traffic Planning Administration, and on behalf of the county's application. And what they're doing, they're seeking federal funds to do a detailed study and evaluation and a plan to address pedestrian and bicycle safety on that county boulevard, Ocean Boulevard, as you mentioned, from West End Avenue up to Morris Avenue.
And we've also had, what was it, George? I think 2 meetings with the County Recreation Department about establishing a bike path all along 7 Presidents Park from Seaview, I believe, to Avenel and around to, for those of you who remember the old USO beach, all the way to Monmouth Beach. But so these conversations are ongoing. They're obviously, lengthy proposals and costly ones as well. But, as Mr. Graviano pointed out, it's something, we're very interested in and are actively pursuing.
Right. And Mayor, just to add on to that, with 7 Presidents, it involves both pedestrian and bicycle traffic. They're looking to possibly make some changes to some of our metered stalls that we have on Ocean Avenue that are right up against the 7 Presidents property. So some major changes to connect the promenade for both pedestrian and bicycle traffic.
And one more item on that note, Mr. Jackson and Mayor, our office is also looking at the city streets, which the city has full control over, to see which streets can accommodate, a bicycle path network fully within our borders and control.
All right, we've got another caller. Caller whose phone number ends in 127. Go ahead.
I don't know how they picked you.
We can hear you, caller whose phone number ends in 127. Caller, we can hear you loud and clear.
Hello, is that me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, because I'm 3127, not 1027.
127, yep.
I was interested in asking where we can view the proposed master plan. When will the final approval be? And will they wait until people can get together in public for this to be approved?
Well, Nick, I think you can answer that, but this is step one. I think we hope to have another meeting where we can get the public involved and get your input. But Nick, the process, could you explain that again, I think?
Yes, as I stated previously, there will be a report issued to the planning board where the planning board will conduct an official public hearing. These are unofficial public meetings which are not required by law. We're doing these because we're going above and beyond to seek the community's input with respect to the preparation of this document. But the public's true opportunity to comment on the official document will be at the planning board hearing for this matter.
All right. Caller whose phone number ends in 268. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you hear me?
All right. Caller whose phone number ends in 268. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you hear me? It's not me.
All right. Caller whose phone number ends in 268. Go ahead. If you're watching on YouTube, if you can mute your computer, this will go a lot easier. Caller whose phone number ends in 268. Go ahead.
268.
If you're watching on YouTube, if you can mute your computer, this will go a lot easier.
Hello, can you hear me?
Loud and clear, sir. If you could mute your computer, we'll get rid of that echo.
Okay. My question is, the safety improvements for Ocean Boulevard have been an issue for a long time. And the plan you mentioned only speak about the bike path going by 7 Presidents Park. How about the safety improvements down by Brighton Avenue where it's congested and trying to cross over? Is the plan addressing that?
The county is presently conducting engineering for the Brighton Avenue intersection, and as well as the city is looking to improve all areas of Ocean Avenue and Ocean Boulevard, many of which are under the jurisdiction of other agencies. But the county is certainly has plans for the Brighton Avenue intersection, yes.
Caller whose phone number ends in 198. Go ahead.
Moderator, I have 5 minutes. Is that correct? Moderator?
Yes, sir.
Hello, moderator. Okay, can I have the 1 minute notification then, please?
Yes, sir.
Vincent Lepore, someone who's gone to zoning board and planning board meetings since 2003. I think I have a little bit of knowledge of what's taking place. This was all supposed to start this process back in October with the master plan and doing public commenting through various neighborhoods throughout the city. Since October, that time, the entire city was declared a rehabilitation zone. The pool project was put on Atlantic Avenue. The Ocean Cooper Tax Abated Development Project was put through. And we have the Seaview Towers declaration of a redevelopment zone, also known as spot zoning. I find it rather suspect that we're starting now the process rather than in October when it was supposed to be. The purpose of the master plan reexamination is to identify the problems and ensure that the development regulations be reviewed and changed to meet the new municipal needs and desires as requested by the residents. The Master Plan Steering Committee should consist of a broad and diverse cross-section of the citizenry in this city, because they, more so than anyone, are the true stakeholders of the master plan in this city. The master plan guides economic development, and as such, it is imperative that high density, particularly on the ocean front, no longer occurs. Particularly high density throughout this city with counterproductive tax abatements. Our entire redevelopment started with a $23 million debt. The redevelopment was supposed to pay down a $23 million debt. Ask any resident in this city if they saw tax relief with our current oceanfront redevelopment. They haven't. As a Jersey Shore community, the coastal integrity has been compromised by the urban blight and urban sprawl along Ocean Avenue and Ocean Boulevard, particularly with Pier Village and Beachfront South, and the recent declaration of another redevelopment zone, Seaview Towers, below Beachfront South. This symptomatic urban sprawl and urban blight from the current master plan must be halted and reversed. The just said segues into the Elberon oceanfront, where changes must be made so as to ensure that beach clubs that get sold off are not replaced with further high-density development projects, but rather recreation open space. The city's current and former master plans blew it with Pier Village and Beachfront South, where recreation open space would have been a nice fit. The proposed recreation on the oceanfront in Elberon should be similar in scale to that of Ocean City and Point Pleasant, truly reflective of a coastal community, open to families and individuals from within the city and outside the city. Elberon oceanfront is there right now, just sitting, waiting for the recreation open space to happen. Also, it must be realized upon the master plan reexamination that the following components, traffic, parking, sewage capacity, further demonstrate that this city is at the point of maxing out its infrastructure, proving that high density is no longer this city's future. And most certainly, we don't want further high-density residential development anywhere in this city permitted to have on-street parking to the point crowding out and congesting nearly residential and commercial areas nearby. Finally, the last three suggestions on the master plan. The environmental resource inventory must include all beach access points now on tidal waterways, ocean and river. Abbotsford Avenue in front of Ocean Place Hotel must be vacated by the city so that the owners of Ocean Place can go ahead with a convention center project, which has been halted by this city's policies. And finally, we must take it upon ourselves that the competence of this planning board has to be reviewed, particularly the planning board attorney, and all citizens must keep in mind the large tract developments are no longer feasible in this city. Smaller tract development is the way to go. To the people, keep an eye on the planning board. There's plenty of incompetence there among the recent appointees. Thank you.
Okay, caller whose phone number ends in 268. Go ahead.
Hello. My question, besides the safety of crossing Ocean Boulevard, is the beautification and enhancement of art along the boardwalk from Brighton Avenue all the way up to 7 Presidents Park. Is there going to be a specific statement to improve the art, the safety of the boardwalk and Ocean Avenue along the boardwalk and develop the 2 existing Green Acre traffic-free parks both in the South Boardwalk and the North Boardwalk?
Yes, I just want to make it clear that the city is very committed to improving, one, the recreational opportunities in the city, as well as the promotion of the arts throughout the various public and private spaces in the city of Long Branch. It will be a clear policy objective in the 2020 master plan reexamination, as it was in the 2010 master plan. And we will do everything we can to make it clear, so when people are seeking projects or seeking funding sources, the city is committed to providing those opportunities.
And as I mentioned to you, Mr. Sherman, we're looking very forward to a new arts center, and that arts center would encompass art throughout the city, hopefully.
Mayor, if I might refer back to Mr. Lepore's comments, he did talk about public access to our beaches and waterways. And just for the public's information, we have our municipal public access plan before the DEP. Our city attorney's office has been working on this for a good 9 months to a year to fine tune that plan, identifying all of those public access points and memorializing that in that document, which will eventually get adopted by the DEP. So those access points will be verified and memorialized in that document. So we are working toward that end.
Mr. Jackson, what do we have? I think we have 24 public access points in the city, or
Oh, we have, I would say double that easily, because there are many, many of them that are not along the ocean front. As Mr. Lepore said, they're on a lot of our back waterways. They're not identifiable by signs or finished paths, but at the end of some of our municipal streets, they are preserved as access points. You would see a cul-de-sac or a dead-end street, but there are access points into the water. So they are memorialized in that document.
Caller whose phone number ends in 683, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. My question is part of the master plan. I know there's been talk about a pier and a speed ferry. Is that something that's part of the master plan?
That is certainly something that could be part of the master plan. However, a project of that size and nature requires funding sources way beyond the means of the city. It would certainly take, federal grant money or other funding sources to make something like that happen. So I don't see it happening anytime soon, but, it's definitely possible to revisit that down the road.
if I might add, Nick, to answer your question, we received, I think, a two-phase grant of a total of $4 million. It was right after the stimulus bill back when, before President Obama came into office and President Bush was just leaving office. And that was part of an engineering program to get us up and shovel ready if there were to be another stimulus package that came along that could fund that. But, through the years, that project has grown to well over, at the minimum, $100 million, if not more, depending on what was envisioned. And we just, the federal dollars are just not there unless another similar package came to fruition, or in case there was a developer who wanted to somehow fund that. But again, the cost of that would, right now, I think would be highly unlikely with our conversations. Would you agree with that, Nick?
Yes.
Okay, caller whose phone number ends in 501, go ahead.
Yeah, hi. My question is, are there any plans particular to the Elberon area in the master plan?
We as we stated earlier, aren't looking at changing zoning in most of the city's neighborhoods, and nothing specific has been planned for the Elberon neighborhood.
Mr. Graviano, we don't have any other callers.
Mayor, quick point. I just took a quick look on my computer. We have over 50 access points in the city to waterways.
Thank you, George.
Well, does any, Laura, Nick, George, if you don't have anything else to add, I just want to say in closing, thank you again for joining us this evening. Your input is very important to us. And in addition to this evening, if you have future questions or concern, please continue to email us at masterplan@longbranch.org. Again, that's masterplan@longbranch.org. And again, I just want to thank everyone. Be safe, be well, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.